Thursday morning, just checking out the hotel again. Nice red Ferrari outside. On the way now to Buckhurst Hill, which I believe is in Essex, to do the Lee Anderson show. I think it goes out as if it's live, but it's not. It's actually pre-recorded this morning, so I'm just going to the tube down there, then get back and do some farming for once. This is a bit random. There's supposed to be a pub around here somewhere where we do filming, unless it's that building there. Ah, there you go. Just done that interview. Probably wasn't the best, if I'm honest, because we had a chat before we started, and then when we did start, I felt like I was covering ground again, and I was just kind of confused me. I'd have been better off just walking in and not having the chat at the bar before we did it. Anyway, it's going to be out tomorrow night, so try and get back home now and get some furt spread. Oh, another news, 40 odd Labour MPs have come out to say that they don't back this tax, so expecting more later. Back here, everyone's queuing for the phone boxes to take a picture. Gonna go and do GB News in a minute about this story that's now breaking about the MPs having this meeting this afternoon. That's one queue, and then there's another one here at this one. Now into the dungeon of the GB newsroom. Because I've been in London and not on the farm all day running around, big thanks to the lads that keep your stuff going. Here's the interview I've just done now, because it was interesting, so here it is.
A rural revolt is in the offing because around 40 Labour MPs are urging today the Chancellor Rachel Reeves to change her inheritance tax plans for family farms. And these rebel politicians are meeting Treasury Minister James Murray today. Now, this includes Labour MP Henry Tufnell for Mid and South Pembrokeshire. And earlier today, he spoke to GB News as political editor Chris Hope has had this to say.
Yes, the girl, the whip's happy with you as a new MP, being tricky on this policy.
Well, yeah, there's always the rough and tumble of politics, but fundamentally, Keir Starmer talked about country first, party second, and I've got a lot of farmers in my seat. I've engaged them extensively over a long period of time, and I was elected by them to come to Westminster to stand up for them, and I'm standing by them now.
Ooh, do we have the beginnings here of a Labour Party rift, a rural revolt? Henry Tufnell speaking to Chris Hope. And by the way, Chris Hope is currently over at Downing Street at Lobby trying to get a news line on this meeting. It sounds like 40 MPs might be getting carpeted by top brass for daring to speak out. And I'm joined now in the studio in Westminster by one of the leaders of the Rebel Farmers Alliance, Ollie Harris. I know you hate being called a leader and a rebel, but that's the way it's fallen. Let's get back to this story. When I spoke to you earlier this morning, you were very, very clear to me, Ollie, you think this is a significant breakthrough. In fact, the most positive thing that's come out of the protesting thus far.
Yeah, I mean, as far as I can see, 40 of them have grown a pair and now decided to think, hold on a second, we're out of a job in 3 years or whatever, 4 years, unless we actually represent our constituents. And that's what they're doing, which is great. They've been listening. The problem we've got and what we've found out over the last few weeks is that the Treasury is so city centre based. They haven't got a clue. They think they're right, and they think that everyone's just a silly peasant talking to them. And now they're being told, and hopefully they'll listen.
Henry Tufnell, of course, is independently wealthy, a bit like Rupert Lowe in many senses. They can say what they like. But he was clear there to Chris Hope. He is being barraged by angry farmers in his constituency. No doubt all these other 40 Labour MPs are too. The big question is, what happens next? Do you think we're seeing now a fundamental schism, an impasse? The rural MPs are being barraged by angry farmers and know that they're kind of walking a gangplank. And then we have a very London-centric, metropolitan, city-dwelling top brass in the party. Never the twain shall meet. What do you think is going to happen next?
Well, if the rural MPs can't get through to the city centre MPs that seem to be running the Treasury, give it a month, and when there's empty shelves, the other MPs will realise, the city centre MPs will suddenly think, oh, actually, yeah, we do need these farmers. We do need to protect these farms.
You think that's the way it might be heading?
Well, that's the next move, yeah. We've educated the public now. They understand it. The Treasury, though, they must be getting it from all angles. They've just still got the fingers in their ears. well, they're going to have to open their eyes soon.
It was astonishing, was it not? In a completely different situation, but during COVID lockdowns, when people had, things like toilet paper shortages, and people went into panic buying, and it really, really had an impact. And the politicians, just as we saw, by the way, back in 2000, when Tony Blair also came up against a rural revolt. You and I talk about this often, Ollie, that time when the farmers joined up with the road haulage lads and the fuel depots, and we started to see an upscaling. Food shortages, something tangible. Nobody wants to see Britain looking like Moscow in the 1950s.
No, and hopefully there'll be some progress made this afternoon, and they'll think about that. But you see, some of these working in the Treasury aren't old enough to remember this, which is quite scary, really. But remember that toilet roll, you can leave it in your garage for years. You can't leave bread in your garage for years, can you?
What do you think is going to happen today? What do people tell? You're well connected, with MPs and farmers. People are telling you stuff all the time. Come on, spill the beans. What are MPs telling you about what they're expecting today? How angry are some of these MPs about this disconnect between the rural MPs and the top brass?
Anyone that's got any sort of agriculture within their constituency, they can't get anything done because they're just going back and just getting completely bombarded, and they get it. There's no doubt about it. They don't get it. But we do need to work on these city MPs now. Were there any of them city MPs are within them 40, what we're calling rebels, or I'd call them brave MPs that are actually doing what they were elected to do, then we'll just have to see, won't we? We'll know more later on today.
And this story broke earlier on this morning in the Times when you and I were communicating, and the Labour Party whip seems to be saying these MPs need to understand that they were elected on a Labour ticket. They weren't elected individually. The message we're getting so far, and I think we're going to get Chris Hope up in a minute, he's been in the lobby meeting speaking to number 10. The message seems to be that they're going to stand firm if you want to have a rural revolt, if you want to go against Keir Starmer, then they might be threatened with losing the whip.
Yeah, potentially, but you see, will Keir just do the maths and think, oh, well, we can lose 40? Are they that arrogant? Maybe they are.
You don't think it would come to that?
Don't know, it's an interesting day, isn't it?
So you think it will come to that? You think this will get juicier?
Well, I know the NFU met last week week before, was it? With Murray, and come out very disappointed, just dead behind the eyes. They couldn't get in to understand any of the human consequences around that, and that's without the food production.
OK, Ollie Hassan, you stay right where you are.
Yeah, so there we go. So we're still waiting to hear any news now coming out. I'll let you know if there is any more, and I'll get it either out on the video later on today or report in the morning, maybe on the socials. Anyway, this is today's birthdays. I really can't pronounce the person that's 93's name, but there it is. Someone put anonymous, so I don't know whose birthday that is. And then the other guy Steve as well, is on there. Anyway, that is all for today. Sorry it's not been a very good video, but thanks for watching, and I'll see you tomorrow.